My name is Mel Brown, and welcome to episode 51 of my crafting podcast. This is my fortnightly vlog about knitting, crochet, weaving, spinning, yarn dyeing, anything else that seems like a good idea at the time. I'm an autistic woman living in the north of England with my husband, our 3 daughters, and 3 cats. You can find me on social media in these places. It's a little bit chaotic in England today, because last night the government announced a lockdown, so that means we can't go out anywhere except for necessities, and it feels very, very strange. As a result, there's 5 of us in this house, and there's going to be interruptions, so I'll do my best to make it as not annoying as I can. Okay, there's a lot of content again today, so I suspect what I'll do is put in down below in the description, I'll put in where if there's a particular section you don't want to watch, then you can skip to the next one. Okay, so let's get started. Where are they now? What's happened to the projects you've already seen? Well, I always start with a memory blanket, and yet again I don't have that with me because Andrea has it. She is working on putting the knitted bit with the fleecy bit, and she's not very well at the moment. So that will happen when it happens, so that will just be a work in progress, but it's not really, because I've done everything knitty wise. Anyway, so that's still work in progress number 1. I'm going to count it, I think. Number 2 is the Advent blanket, and that is going very well. I've now finished 6 of the 12 blocks of 9, and I've blocked 4 of them. And I have started using just leftover sock yarn rather than the Advent minis that I had. And I've got some, these are my favourite at the moment. I'm going to be partway through this one. These colours are just amazing. This is Yarvol Magic, I think. So look at that. That's not coming out very well. So we've got leftover sock yarn, all kinds of bits and pieces going into it now. I don't think the colours are going to be very good today. But yeah, so there's lots and lots of different colours going in now, and it's just sort of trotting along very peacefully. It's funny, the main pattern is just, I'll link to it, is just UK trebles in a mitered square. And you would think that I would have got bored of this by now, because it's really just one stitch. You do a chain up here. But I haven't got bored of it at all. I'm really still loving the pattern, which is fab. So this is trebles, and then when I actually join them together in a 9, I use a UK double. And then when I do the border on them in the blue, that's a UK half treble. So I actually get 3 different stitches in, but only not in all together. So yeah, it's just, I love it. It's just so much fun. So that's that one. That's work in progress number 2. Number 3, the lefty. Now that I've been back a while, I've got it again, and I've been cracking on with it. Adriana is knitting this along with me, and we're pretty much neck and neck at the moment. She's lovely. So I've chosen, this is a Martina Bain pattern, a very, very elegant pattern, lovely, beautifully written, and lovely to yeah. It's a very delicate thing to wear. It won't be for me. I gave my last one, the first one I made, to Sarah. And this one I'll find someone to give it to as well. It's very delicate and pretty, and it's a bit too delicate for me. But it's lovely, and I've got 20 petals on there now. I think I've probably got enough yarn for about 25. So I've obviously got loads and loads of sock yarn, because, you know, blue socks. But what's going to slow me down is this, which is the yarn. Oh, the ball band isn't in there. It's a bit frustrating. Okay, so that's just a plain yarn undyed that I bought from Yarndale, and that's what I've got left. So I think I've got quite a few left actually. It's lovely. It's a really fun pattern to do, and I'm glad to be having it back out again. And it's one of those, you know, if you've watched before, you'll know that I get I suddenly get into a finishing frenzy and I just want to finish everything off so I can start everything. Well, that's how I'm feeling about this right now. I just want to finish everything off. And obviously the Advent blanket I can't finish off. I'm only halfway through it, and I've been doing it since January, beginning of December. So this is something I can finish off. So yeah, I'm working on this quite a bit, doing at least one petal a day. Loving it. Right. Okay. Starburst. So this is the interlocking crochet. Now I haven't done anything on this for a while, but last night I was motivated to get it out. So interlocking crochet, if you haven't seen it before, is this amazing thing. Oh no. There we go. Double-sided. Really, really fun to do, really visually appealing. And I wanted to, this is all one pattern, I've done lots of these. I wanted to experiment with different patterns, different ways of doing it. Now these two are the same pattern. This one I decided to just randomly decide on the pattern. Now I won't give you too much detail about how this works because if you either know it or you don't, but what you do is you work in one colour. When I'm working the dark blue, I only stitch into the dark blue. I do a treble crochet and then a chain, a treble crochet and a chain, and I'm always going into the treble crochet from the previous round. But sometimes I go in front of the one from the previous colour on the previous row, and sometimes I go behind it. And that's what makes the in front and the behind. So if you could take these apart, you'd find that there is no light blue stitch in a dark blue stitch. The light blue is completely separate to the dark blue, but it's interlocking because sometimes I go in front of and sometimes I go behind. So this pattern is defined, I will have put the pattern up here, it is defined by when you go in front and when you go behind. Well, this one I thought I wouldn't actually devise a pattern, I would just make it up as I go along. And so long as each sort of quadrant, each edge was the same, I would just make it up, and it was brilliant. And the only other thing I wanted to find out was what happens if it isn't each quadrant the same. What happens if I just do some random decision on whether it's the front or behind for next. Now random isn't always comfortable for me, but it's good to push myself out of my comfort zone. But I realised that if I was just looking at it and deciding what to do next, trying to make it random in that sense, then I would be doing what was pleasing, and what pleases my eye. I'm autistic, I like patterns. I would be doing it symmetrically. I didn't want to do that. So I decided in advance to do front, front, behind, front, front, behind, whatever row I was on, whatever round I was on. So obviously when there were 6 stitches in it, then it would be fairly uniform. When there were 7 stitches in the round, it isn't uniform. And that would be the most effective way of making it random. Well, I did it last night. And I'm going to try and turn it so that you can see. So you can see there isn't a discernible pattern. It's yeah. And I hate it. Yeah, I needed to know what it was going to be like, because that's what I decided to find out. But it's horrible, and as soon as I get a chance, I'm going to rip it out. So I'll probably do more like this, which are the pattern that's described, but also I'll do more that are just random ones. I don't know what I'm going to do with them yet. I was thinking I was going to teach them, but you know, all teaching's been stopped here. I don't know when it's going to start again. Certainly not for 3 to 6 months, could be 9 to 12 months. So I'm not in a hurry to teach it, and I don't know if when I go back to teaching it's going to be the same as it was. I might have a completely different focus. The coronavirus has just changed everything, absolutely everything here. Yeah. So I'm just enjoying it for what it is, and I was always thinking that I might just crochet them together and make them into a scarf. I'm just going to basically keep playing with it as an enjoyable project, but I'm going to rip back the random one. So that is Starburst, which I'm loving. The Tunisian brioche cowl. That is for a class, but again, I don't know whether any of the classes I've got booked are going to go ahead. I finished that. So I made it a little bit longer than when I spoke to you last, and then I cast it off, and there it is. So it is a sample for classes. It's not really going to be worn by me, but it is quite nice. It's quite a robust fabric, so I think it'll be sort of windproof. I want to talk to Andrea when I can actually get to see her again, about how I might make that stand up more, being as I can't block it because it's acrylic. But I mean, that's the main event, isn't it? This bit here, and it is a fantastic technique. I love it. I really do. But yeah, so there we go. I think it looked quite nice as a hat, although I don't really wear hats. Yeah, it would look quite nice. Obviously, you'd be decreasing from there. I think that would make a really nice hat, actually. Okay, so that's the Tudisi brioche. That's all finished. The only other project you have already seen is my skew socks, which is the best pattern on the planet, as you know. And strangely, I actually had a bit of a pause with this. I don't think I've ever done this before. I've not worked on it for a week or so, which is really weird. I don't think it's changed since I saw you last. I spoke to you last. So yeah, there it is. It's in the beautiful Easy Knits yarn, sparkly, lovely. Yeah, I don't think it's changed, which is really, really weird. Looking forward to getting back to it. But yeah, that's the one that hasn't changed. Okay, so that's all the knitting and crochet. Let's look at dyeing. So firstly, I want to talk about the giveaway. I did a little tiny giveaway for the people who watch all the time, and one of you who does watch all the time did win. And it was Linda. So what she wrote was something rather confusing. What she requested actually over on the Ravelry, the Ravelry group for our knit group. And she said colours, she wants a surprise, she wants a mix of colours, but she wanted at least one rich colour. So that was a fairly vague remit. And Linda has a lot of yarn, so I knew that an unusual colour combination would probably be best. So I recorded a little bit of footage of me dyeing this, but I had some trouble getting the stuff onto my phone, so I'll put on here what I've got. Okay, so here's the finished yarn. So I think that's fairly rich. It's very
Hello. So I'm just dyeing the yarn for the giveaway. So the remit was something quite varied, but with at least one rich colour. Well, I'm dyeing for somebody else, so I can use colours that I wouldn't normally use. So I'm going to go for orange. I'm just going to have a go at microwave dyeing again today. So I'm going to put half of the skein into the yarn colour and then the other half out and see what happens. I'll give you some pictures along the way.
Okay, so here's the finished yarn. So I think that's fairly rich. It's very Irish looking, isn't it? And in the bits in between the green and the orange, we've got some sprinkles. No, it's that colour again. That word again. Speckles, that's it. Some speckles. So let's take it out of the skein. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. It's definitely unusual. It's superwash sock yarn. Oh, I'm about to be invaded by Pip. So yeah, there you go. That's that. Now I won't be seeing Linda for a while. I'll be seeing anybody for a while. So in fact, the post. Not even sure if the post is going to continue. So Linda, I will post that to you as and when I think the post is going to deliver it to you. But that's going to be on its way. Fab. What else did I do while I was dyeing? There's a cat about to jump up. You know the Advent blanket. I haven't got one of the squares here, but when I've got 9 of those squares together, I've then crocheted them together with the grey that is on the edge of all of them, and then I've used the blue to do a border. You'll have seen those before. So I was running low on that yarn, so I dyed another one. and I've not really done this before, dyed it in the same way to try and get the same effect. Well, I did with the Shark Attack for Adriana, but this is what I got. It is actually very similar. I'm quite pleased with it. The main difference is that there aren't quite as much, there aren't the dark, very dark patches, or as many of the light patches as there were with the other one. And I know why that was. What I did was I put a quarter teaspoon of 3 different blues into the pan, the dye pot, with the citric acid and the water, and I dropped the skein in dry. So when it drops in dry, it soaks up water at different rates. And I think the first time I dyed it, I used a smaller saucepan, so it actually took longer to soak in, and so some bits got darker and then some bits were left on the top which got very light. This time I used a bigger saucepan, so it went in a lot quicker. But I don't think you'd notice the difference, to be honest. I switched from one skein to the next partway through a row on the second of 3 rounds of border, and you really can't tell. So I think that's gone pretty well, really. So while I was dyeing, I also did a little skein. Andrea lent me her Magicraft Pioneer, which is the spinning wheel, which has a much bigger orifice, so you can spin the art yarn that I wanted to do. And to get it going, she got it down from the attic, and she's did a bit of weaving, did a bit of spinning, just to check that it was still working. And the fibre that the singles that produced, I Navajo plied, which is kind of like chain plied, where you ply 3 at a time. So basically, it's 3 strands of it together. It wasn't hugely well plied. It was just fairly quickly plied, and then I dyed it in Andrea's favourite colour, purple, which isn't really coming across at all. Anyway, I dip dyed it, so it's quite variegated. And there it is. So then I had just a little bit of yarn left over, and I used a yarn mop, which is one of Rebecca from Chemnitz's ideas. No yarn left behind, so there's a little bit of blue left, and so I just chucked a skein in. So that's now upstairs, ready to be further enhanced at a later date. So lots of dyeing. Really enjoyed it. It's such a quick win. Okay, next, spinning. I was in the process last time I spoke to you of making my first art yarn very clumsily. I was doing what we call core spinning, so instead of just spinning one piece of fibre, twisting it and letting it go on its own into a single, you have a piece of yarn that's already a commercial yarn or whatever, and you wrap the fibre around it as it goes on. And that's not very stable on its own, often over twisted, so you then ply it with something else. And I plied it with a sparkly thread and produced my first skein of art yarn. So, art yarn is a euphemism basically for weird and wonderful stuff that doesn't conform to any normal. Yeah. So, yeah, this is the first skein of art yarn that I've made. So it's all kinds of random fibres. This is some cashmere. There's some Corriedale. The grey is Corriedale. The black is also Corriedale, I think. Here's a sparkly yarn you can see that I plied it with. And sometimes the plying was just straight, as in 2 threads wrapping over each other. Sometimes the sparkly thread wrapped itself a lot around the single, and sometimes the single wrapped itself around the sparkly thread. That was just different techniques I was trying out. It's a very amateur go, but it's yarn for me to weave with, basically, and I'm really excited about it. Some really weird variations in it, which I just love. And the thing with weaving is you just make those appear where you want them to. So if you're weaving across on you and there's this bit that seems to be hidden behind something, then you just pull it out, or you can just come over a few warp threads so that it shows more. You can really make it shine how you want to. And you wouldn't do a whole weave in this, obviously. You'd do weaves in other kind of textures and colours, and then you'd throw in a random few lines of this. So yeah, I'm very pleased with it as my first effort, and I know I've got a lot to learn, but that is for me a very happy place to be, having a lot to learn. if I have the ability to learn it. If I don't, then it's pretty scary. So that's my first art yarn. I'm really, really pleased with it. I now have on my traditional, my Ashford traditional, I have a bobbin of weird and wonderful fibres. I've got some plastic bottle fibres that Sarah gave to me that I've spun onto that and various bits and pieces, but they're still in the neutrals, the browns and the creams and things. And I'm going to apply that with a thread as well and just see how that comes out. And then I will have 2 skeins of neutrals art yarn. And of course, neutrals aren't really my thing, but you know, I don't like my comfort zone, do I? I like to get out of it. So I will do a weave soon that is neutrals, and I shall probably have a lot less choice of what yarns to use because I don't buy them generally, but we'll see what happens. So that is the spinning. Okay, weaving. This has been my big passion this period, is 2 weeks, and it has really kept me sane. Looking back, when you look back at this at another time, you'll probably be thinking, what was all this about? What's all this insanity about? Well, for those of you looking back at later on, just a quick update, it's the coronavirus. It's swept across the world, and all countries are doing measures to stop it from spreading any faster. So we're all stuck inside, and things are changing day to day. The guidance changes day to day. The schools closed last week. The shops and the bars and the restaurants are all closed. We're in lockdown, but things keep changing. And for an autistic person who needs to know what's happening tomorrow, it's been a very, very stressful time for me. Every single day is immensely stressful. I couldn't sleep last night because the news came down at about 8 p.m. of the lockdown, 9 p.m. And I didn't have a chance to process that before I went to sleep, and so I couldn't sleep, and I had a very, very anxious night. So weaving has been amazing for me because when I've not been doing other things, I can just sit down in the dining room and just put a few lines of weaving on, and it's been really, really helping me, which is why I've done so much of it. So when I last spoke to you, I had a weave on the loom. That's the thing you have it on, isn't it? Right, sorry, interruptions. It's a bit mad. So I had my first weave on the loom, my first art weave, and I want to show it to you. I particularly want to show it to Marge Anderson because she's very excited to see it, and I hope I won't disappoint. So it's my first art weave, and when I say art weave, what I mean is no rules. I had 5 different 5 different warps. So the warp threads being the long ones that go right down the length of the piece, and generally you have 1 yarn for it. It might be a colour change yarn, but it's 1 yarn, and I had 5 different ones with 5 different textures and colours, and the yarn I wove into them was all different textures and colours, again within the framework of purples and greens and teals. So with no further ado, because I'm too excited not to, I'm going to show it to you. So you can see this warp here has got this amazing texture to it, so as much as possible I've let that come through, and oh my goodness, I love this so much. A little bit of clasped weft here, which like every bit here, so cute, and some just hairy yarn there. This is so soft. So there it is, my first art weave. It's absolutely bonkers, and it's held together really well. I've done what they call wet finishing, where I've just given it a bit of a wash, and the fibres kind of, they're not separate as they were. You can see the obvious warp and weft. They're kind of a little bit melded together. So that is the scarf. It's not quite as long as I'd like, but it's as long as the warp can be to go from one end of my table to the other. So when you're putting the warp on, I'll show you some of the mess here. So there it is. It is just long enough, really. So that's my first one, and oh man, I loved it so much. Oh, So I couldn't wait to get it started again, get the loom warped up. So I did, and I did blues and greens this time. And because I've got a massive stash, I teach weaving, circular weaving. So I've got loads of little bits and pieces, and I've always buy fancy strange yarns when I get a chance. Excuse me, a bit of green tea. And then people often come to weaving class and I say, well, bring anything random that you want to use up. And they often bring random bits and then leave them with me. So sometimes I do a weaving class and my stash actually increases rather than decreases from it. So what I've done is when I decided on the colour scheme, I just went to my stash and got all the yarns that I thought could fit into it. And then I used them as and when. So this is my green and blue one. I wanted it to be a bit wider because this is a scarf width and it's absolutely fine. I wanted it to possibly be a wrap, and I wanted it to be longer as well. So I had to do a warp that went beyond the end of the table and then round a chair. So it goes from one end of the table to the other, round a peg and around a chair and back. So it's longer. Okay, so let me show you that one, blues and greens. You might see some of the same, the black there, the furry black occurs. This is something new I bought from Yarn Etc. as a bargain box of yarns. It was £1 this game. And yeah, how far have I got that way? Look at this is actually green and black, I don't know. Got some mohair here. These bobbles I love. Oh man. And then, yeah, 5 different warps again. You can see them there. There's some black silk here. Did I tell you about the black silk I bought that had the little brass washers in it on it? Well, that wasn't going to work in weaving, so I had to take the brass washers off, but I managed to get a few of those on there. That's the new yarn. That's some spindly stuff I found in my stash. That's some random tweedy acrylic, and that was the bane of my life. See these little tiny sequins? They got caught on the loom, and I ended up having that section of the warp was really baggy, and it didn't split into 2 parts so that you could put the shuttle in between. It was a mess. But anyway, what do you think? I am desperate to know what you think. I want to know what Marge, what you make of the first one, and I want to know what everybody makes of this. So it is, if I wanted it to be a very luscious scarf, or it would definitely work as a wrap. It's big enough, and again I've wet finished it, so it's fairly robust now. I wouldn't put it in a tumble dryer, although I did spin it, I think, after I washed it. So there it is. It is magnificent. Apologise for being, I don't know, up myself, but I absolutely love it. I love everything about it. I love choosing the yarns. I love warping it. I love making the weave. I love the moment when you pull it off. I love I love it. I'm so happy that I've discovered this, and before the lockdown, because I've got so much yarn now I can just use it all. So that's the next one. There, obviously I have warped up again. In fact, I think at the intro I showed you some of the yarns. I went and got all the pinks and purples from my stash. So there's a picky, I'll just put one in here of the stash yarns I chose, and if I put it on as well, the warp yarns that I chose. So that is almost finished. I am scared to take it off the loom to finish it because it takes a little bit of effort and time and help to get the loom warped up again, and I'm scared that I'll be left without a weave to work on, and that's ridiculous, I know, but I am scared. I don't know what colour to do next. I'm not sure I've got enough yarns in neutral yet, because I haven't got that second skein yet, but I might have a quick look. All of my yarns now are in Lizzie's room, which is my den, but she's home. So I need to have a look through and see if I've got enough neutral stuff. It'd be absolutely fine to do a different approach, to have just a few yarns to choose from, but because there isn't an awful lot of this, it might end up being quite a tedious looking beastie. So I need to just check to see if I have yet enough um, neutral yarns. If not, I'll have to choose another colourway. But the pink and purple one will be finished any day soon, and then that's about the same size as this. It's a little less wide, I think. It's a little narrower, but the same length. So what I'm doing really is building up a body of work, and still massively inspired by Urban Gypsy. Stacey from there, she's brilliant. And learning so much. I mean, every time I do a weave, I learn 5 different warps and how they behave, and 5 different types of yarn. I've used cotton, I've used acrylic, I've used mohair, I've used silk, I've used things with sequins in, with bobbles, with all kinds of different things, and I'm learning so much. And I was watching a video the other day, and one was talking about an analogy of a potter with students and saying, okay, this group of students, you spend the next 6 months making one perfect pot, and you, the other group, you spend the next 6 months making as many pots as you can. And at the end of the 6 months, the group who'd made as many pots as they can had made the best pots. And I think that's where I'm at with the weaving. I just want to make as many different pieces as I can and learn as much, and do make mistakes. Do like that warp here that was just horrendous, and just learn about it, learn what works, what doesn't, just learn so much. And I can actually see myself teaching art weaving at some time in the future, but I can always see myself teaching everything, so I probably need to calm down about that as well. But I'm definitely learning so much and enjoying it immensely. I'm still knitting and crocheting and weaving and dyeing, as you can see, but my just I need 5 minutes just to calm down. That's the weaving. That's in the front room. It's if Dave's cooking, I can weave. If I've come in and I've got to go out again in 5 minutes, I can just sit there. I don't have to get everything out. So yeah, weaving. Okay, something new. I showed you the balls I got from Yarn Etc. Used them already. One of them completely, and the other one partly. And then twisted yarns. I've got my twisted yarns box, so that's my monthly box. I think I've got one more after this. I'm trying to get it out. There it is. Okay, so it's obviously an Easter themed one this month, and we got some sort of packing, just general fibre. I was tempted to spin it, but it's got quite a bit of vegetable matter in it. It's just for packing, really. And then a little Hotel Chocolat, 3 bouncing bunnies, which is lovely. I don't eat chocolate, but my 3 daughters do, so that will be a lovely present for them. There's a little egg cup and a skein of Aran yarn. It's a lovely colour. Again, not something I would choose myself. I don't know what I'm going to make with that, but I'm going to look forward to finding out. I found a project that I'm really excited about, using the yellow, what's that, Chunky? The daffodil one that I got last month. So yeah, I'm just going to cast that on fairly soon, I think. But yeah, this one, Aran, don't know, it's 166 metres. It's very soft, it's superwash merino. So yeah, so that's lovely. That's my something new surprise. Okay, not much more to talk about. I've talked about the coronavirus. Schools are closed, so the little one's doing online school, and she's the only one who has school, which is fab. And keto's going well, although food is going to be restricted over the coming months, and I don't know how that's going to go. But I had a treat today, so I had a day off my regime. So I had decaf coffee with milk in it, which I'd really missed, and I had spaghetti bolognese, which is my same food. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept. Autistic people often have a food that they would eat all the time. They might have a variety of them, but they might just have the one food that is their comfort food, and they would happily eat it every day. That's spaghetti bolognese for me, and I haven't had it since probably very early January, because I gave up pasta. The big processed carbs at the beginning of January, and then I started on keto, which is giving up pretty much all carbs, in February. So I haven't had spaghetti bolognese for a long time, and I had it and it was magic. It was absolutely magic. I did notice a change in I was hungry all the time, not tummy hungry, but just wanted to eat all the time when I was eating carbs that day. And I had some Guinness cake as well. It was one of my daughters had her birthday last week, and I made her a Guinness cake. So I had a couple of slices of that as well. So that was a lovely treat day. But I'm back to eating my normal way now, because this is my norm for me now. Low carb, lots and lots of veggies. And again, we're having terrible trouble getting orders through for Asda, because of course everybody wants food delivered, and that's what we're being advised to do. Asda and all the supermarkets are doing their best to try and get more delivery drivers. The website keeps falling down, and it's making me very anxious. I've got 5 people here to feed, 3 adults, a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old, and yeah, I'm anxious, but it will all be fine. Um, yeah, I set a walking goal of 6,000 steps, and I've got my Fitbit. I exceeded that massively. It's getting more than 10,000. It's up to 7,000 my goal this week, but I'm still getting more. But now there's a lockdown. We're not meant to go out. We can go out for exercise 1 time a week. All the 1 time a day. Sorry, all the reservoirs are shut, so we can't walk around them. It's basically just walking up and down the village. But I will be supporting those houses just over there. I will be supporting them with food deliveries and anything else they need over the coming weeks. So I'll be walking back and forth, but not very much. So I'll be able to leave the house once a day for exercise, and once a day for our own shopping, but also necessities for other people. Okay, I'm going to have to finish here because everything's happening down there. So yeah, it's very weird here and very stressful, but we're alive and grateful for it. I will probably be podcasting back to fortnightly because there's nothing much else to do apart from weave. So stay safe. Yeah, just make a comment. Tell me what you think of the weaving, because I'd love to know what you think, particularly Marge, obviously. And yeah, make a comment, get in touch, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye.